Welcome and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Logan Holmes Watches, where this week we're going back to the future.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious
Show. He was of course going to say show, as in Logan Holmes Watches, the show you are currently listening to. Back to the Future is a 1985 film that revolves around the use of both time travel and the question of what would it be like if you could go back in time and interact with your parents when they were in high school. A similar question was posed to writer Bob Gale to himself one day when he was looking through his father's high school yearbook, and he wondered if he would actually be friends with his dad at that time in his life. That's what we're going to discuss today, Back to the Future, and to a certain degree its two sequels. Hello, I am Logan Holmes, and Back to the Future is about a 17-year-old guy named Marty McFly, portrayed by Michael J. Fox, and his unorthodox relationship with 70-something Dr. Emmett Brown, or Doc Brown as he will be referred to from here on out. Brought to life, of course, by the infinitely watchable Christopher Lloyd. The movie begins with Marty getting a mysterious call from Doc Brown when he comes over to his place to check on him. Marty agrees to an early morning rendezvous with the doctor to assist him with his next experiment. After an epic skateboarding sequence where Marty rides through town in an attempt to get to class before he's caught and penalized by a school's principal, an unsuccessful attempt I might add, we learn that Marty, like most teenagers his age, is unhappy with the hand that life has dealt him. Even though he's in a happy, loving relationship with his girlfriend Jennifer, played by actress Claudia Wells, Marty longs for more. Fearful he will end up in the same rut as his father, George, played by actor Crispin Glover, who, fun fact, is actually 3 years younger than Fox. Now Marty has just learned that the family's automobile has been rendered undrivable by his father's lifelong bully, Biff Tanner, played by Tom Wilson, which ends up ruining his plans to meet up with Jennifer at the lake. Eventually, after being woken up and reminded by Doc Brown to first pick up his camcorder before meeting up with him in the Twin Valley Mall parking lot. Now, I'm not sure how many teenagers listen to this show, but if you ever get called in the late hours of the night by an eccentric 70-year-old man that wants you to meet him in a dark, secluded parking lot, and he also wants you to bring something to record the event, it's probably best to hang up the phone, make sure all the doors and windows in your home are locked, will alert your parents, and just go back to sleep. Marty, for some reason, doesn't heed this advice. Hey, the 80s were a weird time, folks. And meets up with Doc to discover that he has not only invented time travel, but he has built a machine that is capable of doing it in the body of a DeLorean.
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
The way I see it, if you're gonna build a time machine into a car, why not do it with some style?
Now thus begins one of the greatest movie trilogies in cinematic history. While we are all pretty familiar with these films, you may not know about a lot of the stories about how it got made. Now, it was written by Bob Gale and writer-director Robert Zemeckis, and it was produced by Steven Spielberg, which some of you might remember from my show last week where I talked about Jaws. Back to the Future was released on July 3rd, 1985, and it had the estimated budget of around $19 million. But it ended up grossing over $381 million worldwide. Look up the very definition of an 80s blockbuster film, and you will probably see something related to this movie staring back at you. One of the reasons I enjoy this movie and its sequels so much is the attention to detail it has. Oh yes, it is a fine movie to have in the background and only catch a moment or two while you are doing other things at your home, due to it being a common fixture on cable television, but if you really sit down and focus on it, you will notice a level of detail that few films possess. Almost everything that Marty does in 1955 ends up having a lasting effect once he returns to his present in 1985. Now remember when I told you about the name of the mall that Doc and Marty agreed to meet up at was called Twin Pines Mall? Well, after first traveling back in time and while attempting to flee from a shotgun-wielding farmer, Marty inadvertently runs over a pine tree that is on the side of the location where a future mall will one day be built. Because of this, when Marty does return to his time period of 1985, we discover that the mall is now named Lone Pine Mall. Back to the Future, along with a 1960 film Time Machine, were the earliest films that I can recall seeing that explored the concept that what happens in the past has a direct effect on the future. It is a core element to these stories, and one that if you pay close attention, will notice it being used to great effect. In 1985, Michael J. Fox was mostly known for his role on the hit TV show Family Ties, but he also wanted to expand his career and do films. The production of Family Ties was willing to allow him to act in Back to the Future as long as it did not affect the filming schedule of the TV show. So for months after he was done for the day shooting Family Ties, he would be picked up in a station wagon with a mattress in the back so that Fox could get some sleep during the ride to the movie's filming location, in hopes that he would have enough energy to work on the movie until the early hours of the morning. Fox would then be driven to his apartment, carried inside, placed in his bed for hopefully a few more hours of sleep before he would have to wake up and be back on the set of Family Ties. That cycle of events went on for months. Remember that the next time you might think that the life of a movie star is easy and filled with nothing but glitz and glamour. Interestingly enough, while Fox was always the preferred actor for the role initially, he wasn't allowed to be in the film due to his TV shooting schedule. So actor Eric Stoltz was hired and filmed for about 5 weeks before it was decided that things weren't working out and he wasn't right for the part. Reportedly, this stemmed from Stoltz's decision to use method acting, which meant that even while not shooting, he insisted on being referred to as Marty instead of Eric. In fact, when Christopher Lloyd was informed that he had been replaced, he reportedly asked, "Who's Eric Stoltz?" Eric Stoltz is a fine actor, but it would seem that such intensity would be all wrong for this part. Ironically, if you watch the first movie close enough, you will be able to notice a couple of shots of Stoltz's work that were kept in the film. Now, writer Bob Garrell had quite a bit of difficulty finding a studio that was interested in this script, as most wanted scripts with raunchier content, which at the time most of the more popular movies had, except for Disney, that apparently didn't find the script's content family-friendly enough. I wonder if Marty having to frequently turn away the advances of his teenage mother had anything to do with that.
Great Scott!
Also, if it had been up to Universal Studios, the studio that ultimately did buy and produce the films, head Sid Steinberg, the film would have never actually been called Back to the Future, but instead Spacemen from Pluto. Because Sid felt that moviegoers would never be interested in seeing a movie with the word future in it. Thankfully, Steven Spielberg stepped in and wrote a letter to Sid, thanking him for the funny joke title because everyone got a big laugh out of it. Sid, probably out of shame, never brought the issue back up again. Another thing that most people think of when recalling this movie is the DeLorean used as a time machine. But would you be surprised to know that the writers actually had a completely different contraption in mind initially that would allow Marty and Doc to travel through time? The time machine was going to be a refrigerator, but it was ultimately changed because they needed the device to be mobile, and the thought of small children trying to emulate what they saw on screen and climbing into and shutting the door of a refrigerator seemed to be a really bad idea and was thankfully changed. Now, as I mentioned before, one of the things I love about great movies is their ability to make us think about them long after the end credits roll, and Back to the Future is certainly one of those movies. It is a film that lends itself to its viewers coming up with a lot of theories regarding the story. But a lot of those theories can be pretty dark considering that the films are rated PG. Now folks, this is the part where I can't help but discuss a few story elements that might spoil the film experience for anyone that may not have seen them. Because of this, I would encourage you to watch these wonderful movies and then rejoin the program at a later time, such as on the official Radio K-Air YouTube channel, where you can catch the rest of the show without any risk of your overall enjoyment of the movie being ruined. Now that I have gotten that out of the way, I would like to discuss some of the more interesting theories regarding this franchise. The first is about how Doc is seemingly always in the right place at the right time to save Marty before he is injured or even killed. The theory goes that each time these events occur, Doc actually fails to save Marty, and then somehow figures out how to use a time machine to go back and change this. An example of this would be in the scene where Marty is hiding in the backseat of Biff's car, and Doc sees him enter the tunnel. Now, most vehicles that enter a tunnel usually end up coming out of that tunnel at another end. Yet during the fight, the car gets turned around, and while still inside, and right as Biff is about to run over Marty, Doc drops a rope at the entrance to the tunnel and saves Marty's life. Yet Doc would have no reason to know that Marty was exiting from the same entrance that he came in, unless it was because the first time he was unsuccessful in saving Marty's life. The next time you're watching these movies, see if you can count all the times that Doc might have had to do this. The second theory has to do with the ending. Again, this is a huge spoiler warning. So at the end of the first film, Marty is able to return back to 1985 to find that all aspects of both his and his family's lives have significantly improved. His father is a successful author, his mother is no longer an alcoholic, and both his siblings are happy and well off. Everything seems great, except for the fact that everything relating to his relationship with his family has changed and is built on experiences that Marty has no memory of. Think about it this way. Why do you love and care about your parents? Is it just because you are blood related to them? Or is it based on a lifetime of shared experiences that you have with them? The time you were sick as a small child and your mom took care of you. She made you soup and tucked you into bed at night. Or the time you fell down and scraped your knee and your father took care of the wound and told you jokes to cheer you up. Marty has now none of those memories. And how long do you think it will take before his other family members notice he is completely incapable of remembering any of their supposed shared history? At the very least, they'll probably assume that there is something seriously mentally wrong with Marty, and at the worst, they may think he's an alien and search his bedroom for the pod that he came out of. Suffice it to say, Marty's life is quickly going to become a living hell. The last and perhaps darkest theory of all pertains to the fact that Doc Brown is a failed inventor, as it is repeatedly pointed out, up until the point where he actually invents a working time machine, nothing he made ever worked. That's why some believe that the scene in which Doc Brown and Marty are testing the time machine in the mall parking lot, where Doc Brown put his dog Einstein in the DeLorean and is remotely driving it towards both he and Marty, is actually an attempt to end his life.
Whoa, this is heavy.
Doc Brown had absolutely no reason to think that the time machine was going to work, because as previously mentioned, nothing else he invented ever did. In fact, the look on his face of surprise tells us all we need to know. But is it just a case of Doc being the eternal optimist, or something much more sinister? This might just be one of those movies that you should just enjoy and not think too hard about. At least you end up on a really dark path going 88 miles per hour. Ironically, the speedometer of a DeLorean didn't go up to 88 miles per hour. Now on that note, I think I will bring the show to a conclusion, but I encourage you all to explore the rich history of this wonderful franchise. Thank you again for tuning in to Logan Holmes Watches.
I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. But your kids are gonna love it.
I am Logan Holmes, and if you can think of anything else I may have missed, or you want to send me your theories regarding the Back to the Future franchise, you can always email me at, and this is all one word, therealloganholmes@gmail.com. Please stay tuned to the great Radio KR for much more wonderful content, and I hope to see you all here again on Logan Holmes Watches next week on Radio KR.